Good morning, everybody. It's Martin, the sales strategist, coming to you live from Melbourne. And this morning it is my absolute pleasure and delight to be joined by Dr. Jodie Lowinger. And Dr. Jodie is a doctor of clinical psychology. She is a specialist in mind strength, and she's the internationally best-selling author of this tome, The Mind Strength Method: 4 Steps to Curbing Anxiety, Conquer Worry, and Build Resilience. Jodie is also a regular media commentator on Channel 9, on 2GB. If anyone in Australia, let's face it, Jodie, around the world wants to know about anxiety or mind strength, they come to you. Dr. Jodie, welcome to the podcast this morning.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, Dr. J, I'm really intrigued as to your backstory, because you were talking to me off camera earlier about, being a doctor of clinical psychology and studying at Harvard, and a few places like that. So what was the allure to, how did you start studying? What was the passion to become a psychologist? And then second part to that question, why did you specialize in anxiety?
My passion to become a psychologist was always an intrigue around emotions, around relationships, connecting with people, ultimately helping people. My mum was born into World War II, into trauma, and she was displaced in a labor camp, and her family was sent to concentration camps. And so she grew up in a very traumatic environment, and grew up quite anxious. And for me, growing up with a mum who was riddled with post-traumatic stress and anxiety really put me in a role where I was almost a parent to my parent. And so helping people from birth, let's say. And so a lot of experience from early childhood with anxiety. But a joy in helping people. I was kind of the person that people turned to at school, and really a delight in that space. So jumped into psychology. I actually didn't do psychology straight away. I did design first of all, as I love art and design and creativity. But psychology was really my passion, really my calling.
Awesome. That's a really powerful motivation to do something. And wow, that's it explains a lot about your passion and your purpose, because we know each other reasonably well. I've worked with you and your team on and off for a little bit. But a couple of things that occur to me is that you've been very successful at what you do. As I said, you're now the person that the media and everyone comes to if they need opinions on mind strength or anxiety in particular. So how long have you been on your own? Because your business is made up of 2 or 3 different facets. You have the anxiety clinic, which serves individuals both around Australia and around the world. Plus you have the mind strength method, and you also do keynotes. So how long have you been working on the business? And it's kind of grown from one thing into another. So just explain that process to me.
Yeah, it's been an incredible evolution, really driven by my heart and my passion to help people on scale, and the development of a methodology, the Mind Strength Method, that has 2 key components, or 2 key goals. One is in a clinical context, which is helping adults, kids and teens with anxiety, stress, low mood and burnout, direct transformational capability in that space. But ultimately, the Mind Strength Method is a high performance methodology. So with these 2 streams, it's built on the foundation of, I did do a clinical psychology degree, but actually was poached into corporate. I worked at PwC and then subsequently in Macquarie Bank in leadership development and business strategy, and building high-performing individuals and teams in change management as well. And then subsequent to that, did my Doctor of Clinical Psychology, working and training at Harvard and developing specialized expertise in anxiety. So the 2 businesses were set up as a result of quite a bit of experience, the Anxiety Clinic and Mind Strength. The Anxiety Clinic being clinical, Mind Strength helping leaders and organizations build high performance and thrive. And through the evolution and the growth of these two businesses, my personal brand, which is a third business in essence, the Dr. Jodie brand, evolved, which is my voice and being able to share my voice and methodology with the world.
Awesome. Now, I know you as being a very heart-centered woman, but I also know you as being a very powerful woman as well. So you've got that unique combination of heart and power, which you've brought together in a very unique way. So is that challenging at all? Because being heart-centered and being powerful at the same time, I'd like you to take me through that, because it's kind of a unique combination of qualities.
Thank you for that. It's really easy, to be honest, because it's deep authenticity, and it's alignment to my values, and my values of a joy in helping people and a joy in connecting with others, and aligned with a methodology that I have absolute confidence in, built on helping thousands of people and organizations over the years. So I can step into that space of power through knowledge in my capacity to add value in people's lives. A lot of my clients, I'll do a bit of a plug for the show Billions. A lot of my clients call me Wendy because they kind of resonate with the power. For those of you who don't know Billions, she's a high performance coach and she's pretty kick-ass. So I like the association because it does sit fairly comfortably with me. But yeah, I think that the key is really embracing your purpose, and that enables individuals to be energized. So I bounce through the day and just with an absolute joy of helping people on scale.
I know you do, because I can see how passionate you are, and I can see how you've inspired your team to be equally as passionate about what you do as you do. And I thought it was curious, and I did say I was going to, off air, I did say I was going to ask you this question, because when we were talking about this podcast, when we connected earlier on, when I started talking about sales to you, you went, "Oh, sales, really, Marty? You know, sales. Do we need to?" I don't really talk about sales process too much, and it was interesting to me because you're not Robinson Crusoe when it comes to that. So I'm really curious in regards to what that response was all about and how you see sales, because you see sales probably differently to a lot of people do. So explain that.
Well, it's interesting because I absolutely love selling. I really do love selling because selling isn't, let's call it old school selling for me. Selling is heart, and selling is connection, and selling is authenticity, and selling is owning your power and owning your passion. And I think that, as you know, Maddie, my heart pulls me daily, and it's deep heart-centered connection, no bullshit alongside that, right? Because I'm a high performance coach to CEOs and C-level executives, oftentimes of multinationals, where they look to me to help them. So it is a very powerful space, but it's not about selling. It's not about ego. It's the capacity to take yourself right out of anything that is contrived and just absolutely jump into selling yourself through building connections and building authentic relationships and holding yourself deeply accountable to adding value. So that's really core. I hold myself to a really high level of accountability where I'm constantly about abundance and sharing in abundance and helping people in abundance. And quite frankly, the large majority of my work comes from word of mouth engagements and on-selling opportunities, whether I'm working with an individual organization that they ask me back for more and more and more, or whether it's a person who's an event coordinator or a speakers bureau. It is about adding value and constantly holding yourself to deep accountability, to being the thought leader and differentiated, where people know with certainty that Jodie is going to be a safe pair of hands that's going to add exceptional return on investment.
Boom. what a great snapshot of what sales is all about to you. So that's a great micro piece of content I'll be using later on, because you encapsulated everything that really heart-based selling is all about. It's about serving it, but specifically, it's about not being needy. It's about owning your space. And hey, look, I don't have a problem with anxiety. You do, and I happen to be the thought leader anywhere on the face of the planet in anxiety. And if you need me, well, you'll come to me, right? But we're all sorry. You were going to say something?
Yeah, and I think what I love about the joy in the work that I do is being an anxiety expert enables me to understand the fundamental drivers of human behavior, our primitive drivers, and the neuroscience of what we do as human beings. And human behavior is really predictable. And when you can understand the predictability of human behavior, you can create a transformational toolkit that helps absolutely every single person on this planet. So, where the light bulb moments happen, which makes it actually really easy for me to sell, is that people understand, my champions certainly understand, that when you're an anxiety expert, it's one and the same as enabling organizations to deeply build high performance, because it's the mind strength method is all about the capacity to take yourself out of unhelpful behaviors and realign to helpful behaviors. Really simple, really logical, and really doable in every single person. So it's fundamentally a high performance methodology, leveraging my expertise in anxiety.
Fantastic. Now, I'm not going to let you off scot-free. I do want to ask you a little bit about your sales process a little bit later on. But for everybody that's listening, there are certain things that we can and can't say in regards to Dr. Jodie's business, because she's a psychologist. There's a great degree of confidentiality around what we can and what we can't discuss. And so I wanted to take this conversation down a slightly different area, because I do know through working with you guys that you work with some really big organizations. And you mentioned earlier some multinational organizations. Now, we can't tell you the names of those organizations, but they're brands that a majority of the population, some of them, would interact with almost on a daily basis. And you interact them at a high level performance coaching perspective. And as you said, C-suite level executives. And the world has been through some pretty tumultuous times over the last 2 years, in case you haven't noticed, Jodie. So I'm interested that your businesses and top executives that are anxious and uncertain of their future, uncertain of the future of their businesses or their employees, what are some key messages that you deliver to these individuals that could potentially help anyone listening to this podcast today?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think one of the superpowers that we have as human beings is awareness around when we're sitting with agitation and fighting uncertainty, because of the enormous amount of uncertainty that we have. And we're wired to dislike uncertainty. It's just our primitive survival instinct kicking in. So fundamentally, it's about noticing when we're struggling with that and realigning to, let's say, can you build awareness? Can you build acceptance? And can you build alignment to more high performing habits in that space? So, acceptance of uncertainty as part of the world that we live in is our superpower. Not easy to do, but awareness enables us to move into action around that. It might be as simple as moving out of worry, because worry is our struggle and our grapple with uncertainty, into problem solving and action planning around the elements that are in your control and building acceptance around the elements that are out of our control. That's one bite-sized little mind strength hack, let's say. All very doable, but we need to start with awareness. And so the mind strength method is 4 steps. Initially, awareness around our unhelpful actions, our fight or flight driven actions. Awareness of, in a business context, your mission, your purpose, your strategy, your values, your strategic goals, and your strategic actions. That enables you to then leverage a mind strength toolkit, which is moving out of 1 and realigning to 2. And then we want to make our well-being sustainable. This is what step 4 is all about. It's a whole scientifically supported toolkit around bolstering your well-being to enable you to flourish and thrive and, let's say, kick the shit out of your goals in this crazy, chaotic, uncertain world that we exist in.
And you mentioned before high performance habits. So, and you would see, I imagine, at that level, high performance habits in action all the time. So what high performance habits would be in the top 1 or 2 that you could think of if you could say to a business owner, hey, look, if I was a business owner, if you have these habits, it's a great start. What would those habits be?
The habits is learning how to master your mindset, and that's core to the mind strength method, and that's really doable. I want people to feel really hopeful that these strategies are not hard and deeply embedded in logic. So habit, the Uber habit is mastering your mindset. And this is what my champion leaders do so magnificently. And then realigning to values at an organizational level and leading by example so we can build a high performance culture. So let's say values drives culture and culture drives performance. And so leading by example is champion leadership. So that's one. So then there's a whole lot of mindset hacks underneath that. But then we want to build certainty in the uncertainty. So we do recognize the power of routine in that, not to power of routine. It enables us to decrease the clutter in our mind and recognize the mind-body connection as well, looking after our mind to looking after our body to look after our mind and vice versa. When we're talking about building exceptional leaders who are already exceptional, we want to be really thinking about the next percenters. I work with Olympians, I work with CEOs, as you've highlighted. So it's really about how can we just get the next percenters, the next percents in building high performance, but really logical and really doable.
Yeah, because I think that in my experience, and I know yours also, in a lot of cases, is that a lot of highly successful people in business, when you ask them, how did you take that leap from being where you were to where you are now? A lot of people will always say, well, I fixed myself first, because anything that comes out of my business came from me first. So it was that awareness around, hey, I've got shit to deal with. And unless I deal with that shit, my business is never going to thrive. And I guess you see things like that all the time.
Absolutely. And this is really important, and it brings it back to values. You know, oftentimes high performers and certainly people who experience anxiety is a superpower because anxiety is the protective instinct at play. So people who experience anxiety are often just deeply caring human beings, and high performers are often caring human beings that they care, they give a shit, they want to make a difference. And so let's take a value of kindness, for example. People who care oftentimes have a core value of kindness. But what can sometimes happen is they find it easy to give kindness out, but they don't necessarily take time to self-nurture and self-care. And so I say, well, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense, because if you've got a core value of kindness, why does it not have equal importance to be kind to yourself as well as being kind to others? And as you know, you can't pour from an empty glass, to use that wonderful old cliche, right? You have to look after yourself in order to look after others. So sometimes we have to just really hone in and recognize that if you have a value and you want to be true to your value, and let's say your value is kindness, you're not being true to your value if you're only extending that kindness outwards. Certainly embracing self-care and well-being is going to enable you to build high performance and thrive for yourself, for your family, for your organization.
That really landed with me. The whole thought of if your value is kindness, you also have to shine that light inwards and be kind to yourself. And
Absolutely. Because otherwise
I'm,
you'd be
I'm
a hypocrite, right?
yeah. So you mentioned anxiety before, and you said that anxiety is not a bad thing; it's there for a reason. So, am I correct, therefore, in assuming that perhaps the high-performing individuals will have a sense of anxiety over something, but that's their gut or their instinct or whatever it is telling them, hey, look, you need to pay attention to this, but that then inspires action. They don't camp out in it. They're not just overwhelmed by it. Is that how a high performer deals with anxiety? They see anxiety for what it is. They figure out what it is. They work on the problem and they get it behind them. Is that a simplistic way of putting it?
Absolutely. And, awareness is your superpower. Awareness, acceptance, these are really wonderful fundamentals. Um, I talk about it's not so much your actions, it's what's driving your actions. And this is core to the mind strength method is we want to move out of fight or flight drivers and realign to values driven actions. So from anxiety to action is one of the things that I talk about is saying you your protective instinct is kicking in, but what is driving that? Is it driven by fear or is it driven by values? And the whole realm of behaviors that emanate from that is fundamentally different. So let's say the protective instinct is there for a reason. It's there to help us in times of real threat. If I'm in a dark alley, I want to be able to fight or to run should I need to. And that's when anxiety enables the sympathetic nervous system to kick into gear and to help us in times when we need it. But if we're responding to perceived threat, let's say a worry thought or a worry story, a fight or flight driven action might be avoidance. And so it's the ability to build awareness around, am I avoiding something that takes me away from my values? How can I leverage the Mind Strength Toolkit to enable me to approach rather than avoid, so I can realign to flourishing and thriving? But the underpinning of anxiety is certainly a care factor, a protective instinct. And when you can learn the toolkit to move out of fight or flight and realign to your values, that is next level and really doable.
That's an awesome share. Thank you, Jodie. So now we've got 7 minutes left, and now is the time that you don't want to go there. We're going to talk about sales process, Jodie. So I'm really interested, and I've helped you with your sales process, but I'm interested because, and you are, as I keep saying, you're a high performance individual, and you deal at kind of that end of town, inverted brackets, but you also get to deal with the common man from time to time as well. And I say that, with a bit of tongue in cheek because you're always available.
And
But
even the common woman.
Exactly right. Consider me chastised. But
Crack the Wendy whip.
yeah, because we were talking about pricing, the prize frame, and in your business, you certainly are the prize. Like, you're not immediately available to a lot of people, so your sales process reflects that, right? People have to earn their right to be worthy of your time, I guess, is the words that we would talk about. So from the time a customer is engaged, you get a lead coming in, and let's talk about the Mind Strength method, or for Mind Strength or high performance business coaching, or even keynotes. What is the process that you take your customers through, without giving anything away in regards to confidentiality, of course? But what's the process you go through?
Well, it's an evolving process because of our growth, and it's really exciting. And it's that magnificent step change of scale. So the dance is about building relationships and leveraging the power of social media and putting my thought leadership out in social media and through the media. So really it is about those authentic connections. And I know I'm not talking about process necessarily, because I don't really rely that much at this stage in my growth trajectory on process for me personally. But when I'm talking about my infrastructure, the process is critical. So the back end. So as a thought leader, I'm very much around my role as an influencer and sharing my voice, and then leveraging my time to build relationships, and then leveraging my infrastructure to do their roles. I'm really conscious of staying in my lane in that space. So as the brands across the Anxiety Clinic, across the Dr. Jodie brand, and across the Mind Strength brand continue to grow, we bring the talent on board that's required in operations, in following up on the connects that I facilitate, and in taking it across the line. So I haven't really talked to the specific process, but it is recognizing the power and the importance of process as the organizations and the brands grow and scale.
Yeah. So because I helped you with it, I think I would love just to share a little bit of it. Because when a lead comes into your system at that corporate level, that immediately goes to your wonderful executive assistant Rachel, who pre-qualifies the customer, I guess, for another word. Because the one thing about the Dr. Jodie brand is that you are a premium product. You are not the cheapest public speaker in the world, and nor do you want to be, because that's what comes with thought leadership, right?
Correct.
And the next stage of the process is that should that customer have selected themselves through Rachel's facilitation, they then get to have a 30-minute discovery call with you. But that takes a bit of effort on their part to get there. And I like talking about this because it's all part of the customer experience and client selection, right? Because you're a busy woman. You don't have time to muck around with people that are kicking the tires or half interested, right? So in that 30-minute discovery call, as I said, without giving too much away, what is it that you're looking for from your customer? What is that customer saying to you that makes you think, wow, I can really help this organization or really can help this individual? What is it that you're looking for as part of your selection criteria?
Yeah, 100%. It's because it's all about adding value, and so it's about saying, am I the best person to be working with you, and choosing my clients accordingly, and enabling them to answer that same question. I've got the Anxiety Clinic brand and a magnificent, constantly growing team of psychologists and clinical psychologists, where the client might be better served working with one of my magnificent team. And for me, it's recognizing identification of an individual's goals. So the purpose of the discovery call, whether it's 15 minutes or whether it extends into 30 minutes, is to gauge, am I going to be able to serve you at the highest level based on the goals that you want to achieve? And in those goals, the Mind Strength coaching framework covers 4 pillars. Everything from business strategy and building a high-performance culture, to building outstanding leaders and high-performing teams, to enabling individuals and teams and whole organizations to build a resilient and high-performing mindset. And then as well, everything or anything to do with mental health and well-being, whether it's anxiety, whether it's stress, whether it's low mood, whether it's burnout. So the discovery call is critical. And I always jump into abundance and sharing in abundance. So there's 2 goals in that engagement. It's clarifying the individuals or the organizations or the keynote goals, and then enabling identification of a beautiful fit in that space. And then jumping in. I'm really big on tailoring my services as well to enable being able to meet my clients' needs, whether it's as a keynote speaker or as a high-performance coach for them and their organizations. Once that qualified engagement is identified, and when we're talking goals, we're talking about achieving hopes. I talk about the magic
Mhm.
wand question. If they could do or achieve anything, what does that look like? And alleviation of any pain points there. When that is a qualified, appropriate client, then I then it's back to my team, and then because I'm the talent,
Right.
um, and it's staying in that space. But really, it is helping people to recognise that it's about return on investment at a very high level.
Fantastic. And I know that your customers, when they talk to you, they always talk about the return on their investment and the impact that you've made on their business, on their earnings through what you're doing and how you're facilitating with their teams. Because a happy team and a non-anxious team is a high-performing team. But Jodie, you're not going to believe it, but our time is up. But before we go today, we may have a high performance executive out there. We may have someone that's looking to get a keynote done. We may have someone that's just curious to reach out and maybe even purchase the Mind Strength method, which we've been speaking a little bit. So, how does one contact the Mind Strength? How does someone contact Dr. Jodie? Or they're not going to get straight through to you, but how would someone contact you if they have any questions at all regarding the suite of products that you offer, or how potentially you could assist them in their anxiety or mind strength journey?
Yeah, the best way to contact me is via my website, which is drjodie, drjodie.com.au, or otherwise I'm pretty much everywhere on social media, really active on LinkedIn, and loving it, loving connecting with people. So direct message me anytime. That's an absolute joy as well, via LinkedIn, or otherwise jump on my website um, and send a request in through the website. If you want to connect by by a dinosaur method, you can actually pick up the phone.
What? They exist?
Which is 9389 3339. I'm located in Sydney, but in this magnificent digital world, helping people. Certainly, the Anxiety Clinic is helping people across Australia through hybrid engagement. Digital technology enables people to achieve their therapy goals really easily. So don't hesitate if you are not located in Sydney. But as a keynote speaker and as a high performance coach, I'm working with organizations around the world. So please feel free to connect, because it's an absolute joy to be able to help people on scale. That is my mission. And it's beautiful to chat with you today, Martin, in that mission.
And let me assure everybody out there, Dr. Jodie, she's the bomb. Get on board the Dr. Jodie train. Now, so Dr. Jodie, thank you very much. It's been awesome that we're able to coordinate our schedules. We've been trying for a little bit to make everything work. Finally, today, the stars aligned. So it's been awesome to have you on the show. And for everybody else out there, you would have got plenty out of this podcast. And from my sales heart to yours, remember, a sales fit business is a healthy business. Ciao for now, and see you all next week.